What was it like during that time going through, I'm going to say, one of the biggest challenges of your life? What was it like living with somebody who was kind of just ignoring you? How did that feel?
Yeah. It was really tough. It felt, have you ever had those nightmares where you go to yell and no
Yeah.
voice comes out?
Yeah.
That was what my life felt like. It felt like anything I said or did was falling on deaf ears. And there was this one point where he started a new gig that was work from home, and so we had a screened in porch, and he converted it into an outdoor office. So he spent a few $1,000s on windows to make it like insulated and everything so that he could work out there in the winter. And it was a beautiful area. It was a great idea. And I wanted to buy a couch secondhand that I could sit on because with my lupus, we had a very old couch that you kind of sank into, and my joint pain was too severe, and I just couldn't sit in it. And so I could either stand in the kitchen because we didn't have any chairs, or I could lay in the bed in the bedroom, and those were my only two options. And so I said, I would love to hang out in the living room again. So I really want to buy this couch that is secondhand. I was like, give me a budget of like $100, like Craigslist or Goodwill or something. Like I can find a good couch that I can sit on for $100. And he wouldn't let me do it for months.
Wow.
And I actually had this book in the kitchen, and it was a little black book that had written across the top, proof of conversations. And I would write down, you agree to give Torie a couch for her birthday or for Christmas. Like that was the thing. He always had to wait until there was an event for me to get anything.
Mhm.
And then he would sign it and I would sign it, and he would look at it and he would be like, I don't know when we wrote that, but like, I don't want to do it. And so it was like, even that was not enough. And I remember telling my therapist, it's like, I felt like I needed a lawyer just to be in a relationship, because it was like, his word didn't mean anything. And it was so hard for me to get any kind of consideration. And it wasn't even just attention. Like I can, I can last a while without attention. I'm a true introvert. So, it's like, I like a good stretch of alone time. That's fine.
Mhm.
But it was like I was in the house, but I really didn't matter to him. And that was really tough. It was like a fight in the wind, where it was like I would waste all of my energy just trying to be seen, and I never was.
Wow. Where did you guys get that idea for proof of conversations? That's kind of super smart.
Oh, I came up with it. I was like, this is so ridiculous, because the gaslighting was terrible. He would
Yeah.
be, I never said that to you. You're making that up. You are making that up on the spot to manipulate me right now. And I'm like, we talked about it last Tuesday. But I had it written down in my diary, and he didn't trust that. And
Yes.
so, like, I was like, all right, well, this is a joint diary that you are going to sign and I'm going to sign, and we're going to date it so that we can come back to this later. And it was honestly just a tool of desperation, because that was a consistent problem I would have, where he would deny saying anything that he
That's so
said.
funny.
Yeah.
I did something similar with my ex, but that's smart, like to have it all in one spot. I used to have it, I used to call it contracts. So
Mm,
he would say he would do something or not do something or whatever it was. And I'd be like, I want you to write that down, date it, and sign it. But the
mhm.
issue with that is we'd put it in like a place, like a refrigerator or on the bathroom mirror. And then it would just like mysteriously disappear, just like one day. It was just like,
No,
so
thank God we never
it
did
was,
that. But
but
yeah,
that's cool. Not that I would ever need that again, but that's interesting to have that.
yeah.
Um, I actually, I bet that just marriages in general would probably benefit from that. Because I think, not that there's, that it's done purposely, but sometimes, just in arguments or whatever, sometimes that's something that happens just in general in relationships. So I wrote that down.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Yeah, my
Conversation.
boyfriend and I now, that'll happen. I mean, I love our relationship. We have a great relationship, but he'll say that. He'll be like, "You don't remember telling me that?" And I'm like, "I really don't. I'm sorry. I'm sure you're right, but I don't remember. Can you give me more context?" And sometimes it's just gone. Like I really genuinely don't remember.
Yeah, totally. That's so funny. And I like how it's like nice, because mine was like, write a contract. This is like loving, like proof of conversations, just like da-da-da. I like that.
And that was one thing that was, I think, was the biggest ego hit for me, was how loving I had remained throughout the whole thing.
I love that.
And it was like he still, it still wasn't enough for him.
Yeah, I totally get that 100%.
Yeah.
So you said that he divorced you, but it was mutual, right?
It was. Yeah, it was. And it would go back and forth for a while, where he would be like, "Oh, I don't really want to get out of this." And so I read tarot, and I had a deck of tarot cards at one point, and I was like, he had come to me, the divorce papers were signed, ready to go, and he wanted to call it off. And he's like, "I just need a few years to be able to love you again, but like I really want to keep this together." And I'm like, I can't sign on for that. And so I had the cards next to me, and I was just like, okay, this is all the stuff that has built up between us over the years. And so each and everything, and I just started like pulling them off one by one. I was like, each and everything we're going to have to discuss and work through and come to some kind of resolution on, in order for us to keep this together. And he was like, "Oh, I definitely don't want to do that. No, we should get divorced." I was like, okay, that's what I
thought. I'm glad that you had enough, because, early in the conversation, you were saying that you had never really stood up for yourself. So I'm kind of glad that quite a bit of time kind of passed before this actually happened, where you didn't, because there's some women that would have signed on for that and been like, okay, yeah, I'll waste more years waiting for you. And I'm glad that you just kind of put the kibosh on that.
Yeah, it honestly was just things that my therapist pointed out to me, where, she was, so obviously previous generation relationships were different than now, and not necessarily worse, but, they didn't know things that we know now. And so watching relationships in my life, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, anything like that, men were allowed to check out easier.
Yeah.
And that was, the women kind of made an excuse for them and excused them. But the man was allowed to not be present, not be engaged, not be active at all in the family life or in the relationship, and just kind of go out and make the money. And that was fine. And it was commonly accepted. And so that I had kind of grown up seeing excuses made for that. And so I was making excuses in my mind for things that he was saying to me.
Got it.
And, he would say things like, "You're such a burden to me. You're the reason I don't get to do what I want in life," and all this stuff. And I'm literally a burden. Like, I'm bedridden right now, like there's like, if I was in the hospital, I'd be a burden on the hospital. And, if I was at my parents' house, I would be a burden there. So it's, it wasn't wrong that I wasn't a burden. However, there was no love there to like sweeten it, where it was, "You are disabled and I'm so honored to take care of you." It was just, "You're a burden and you're the reason why my life sucks right now."
Yeah.
And so I would make excuses for that. And I would say, oh, well, he's just so stressed, or, well, he's probably right. And, there were times where I was definitely suicidal with it. Just because, somebody tells you you're a burden and you're the reason why their life sucks, you tend to be like, well, if I was just not here, your life wouldn't suck anymore. And I love you. And that sounds like a good alternative. So let's go.
Yeah.
And so my therapist was just very, very gentle with me and kept saying, make sure you listen to the words that he's saying and don't fill in the gaps. And she would encourage me. She would say, write down everything he says to you for like 3 days this week. They don't have to be consecutive. It's probably too much, but like just write down what he says to you and literally look at the words and do not fill in the blanks for it. And that was a huge eye opener for me. And
in what way? In what way?
Just because I realized that I was the relationship. I was loving him and filling in his voice for loving me. And it was like playing chess against myself, where I would, be the wife and then run over and like be the husband to myself and then run back over and be the wife. And he was allowed to check out. He was allowed to be completely absent. And, when he was there, emotionally abusive. And it was just good for me to see how I was keeping myself in that cycle. And, that is something that I really believe, that he was abusive and I let myself be abused. And, that was a really good realization for me, just to see how much I was perpetuating the cycle because I was filling in the gaps with what a loving partner would have said to me.
Got it. Wow. That's strong.
Mm-hmm.
That's so strong. Did anyone help you when you were?
Yes, it was. My therapist was absolutely amazing. She was definitely the first person who noticed. And that's the thing, like my ex was a very quiet man. And so I was kind of his person, and I was always just so honored to be his person. And so nobody really ever got close to him. And I was so protective of him and, protective of myself in that way too, where it was, I'm not going to let people know that I'm letting him treat me like this. And so nobody really saw us together. Nobody saw how it was. And my brother was definitely a huge help during that time, where I would call him and I would be suicidal and I would be like, like, there's no point. There's really no point. And he would be quiet and hear me out. And then he would be like, it's bullshit, right? Like, that you are worth something as a person, even if you're bedridden, even if you're X, Y, and Z. And actually my little brother, so that's my big brother. I have 3 brothers. My little brother, he called me up one day just to, chat. Mm-hmm. And I told him, he was like, so how are things going? And I was just like, well, I think we're going to get divorced. Like it's not going well. And we're headed in the wrong direction. And he was working a factory job at the time, which are notorious jobs for like impossible to take off time. And he got the weekend off, and he drove up and he spent the weekend with me and just talked to me the whole time and made sure I knew that he was there. And each and every person like in my family offered, to let me stay there rent free as long as I needed to and everything. And so I did have a lot of people in my corner just letting me know that. I think that was the biggest thing for me, was letting me know that I wasn't crazy and I wasn't wrong for wanting out.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that 100%. What does, after all of this and time has gone by, what does your life look like now?
My life is a complete 180. I was, just going back to 2017, I was in a relationship that it was just really hard. to be in that relationship. I was bedridden. I was just kind of given a death sentence with my lupus, and I didn't really have a future. I didn't have a trajectory, and we were in this really awful little broken down house so that he could save as much money as possible. That was a huge theme for us, was how much he cared about money and not about me. Like, he made a lot of money, and we were in this $60,000 house, which was just a shack on the bad side of Indy and Indianapolis, and it was it was a place that I was able to make beautiful and make into a home. But you could feel a breeze in the winter inside the house because the insulation was so terrible and the windows were so old. And I never got to do skin to skin with my son because he was born in March and it was so cold. And I wasn't able to turn the heat up because, the bill. And so it was like living in poverty, but not having an income at the poverty level. And also being disabled, and also being a college grad, but out of the workforce for a while because of my health. And now I am in Charleston, South Carolina. I am the manager at a nonprofit center that is it's Trident United Way. It is it helps connect people to basic needs, so food, housing, shelter, anything like that. People call in, and we have connections in the community, and we help get their bills paid or help connect them to food or help sign them up. Marianne, thank you. And then I am also in full remission with lupus. If anybody were to take my blood right now, it would test completely normal. I'm still on medication for it, which it's not absolutely clear when they say you can get off the medication, but I don't receive any side effects from it. So, I'd stay on it forever if they let me. And my son is 3 years old. And what else? Oh, I have a YouTube channel. Actually, that was one of the things that I noticed when I was bedridden and didn't have any social outlet, is I would go on to the lupus support groups, and there was nobody on there who was in remission. And I remember asking one time, I think it was a group of like a few hundred people. And I was like, literally, is anybody in remission on this group? Mm-hmm. And it was crickets for like days. And then somebody replied to it and they said, I think people who are in remission don't want to hang out on lupus groups anymore. And so I was like, okay, not okay. If I'm ever in remission, I am going to have some kind of social media reaching out to people who are still in the thick of it, letting them know that remission is possible and doable and there for everybody. And so that's what I'm doing with my YouTube channel.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really great. It's wonderful because even, things like I talk about my psychosis story on there. And I've had so many people reach out to me either in the comments or on a private message on Instagram where they say, me too. I thought I was the only one. This is such a scary, shameful thing to happen, to lose your mind and then come back. And, you kind of think of people losing their minds as like, drug addicts or people who are, mentally unstable to begin with, but just having a normal person go through a psychotic episode is a really scary thing. And so it's so nice to be able to reach out to people and have them reach back out to me and say that my story really helped them.
Yes.
So yeah, yes. Doing that. I also have an Etsy shop if you guys are interested in crystal jewelry.
What do you sell jewelry?
I do. It's jewelry. I also have hand painted journals and like wood burned plaques and stuff like that.
I love that.
It's yeah, it's really fun because I actually mix like saints and like different energies, like spirit animals and stuff like that with the crystals, and even like your birthstones and stuff like that.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of a creative outlet I like to do.
What about any love stories? Any rekindled love, or are you staying
Yeah.
single for a little while?
Oh no, I am. I'm pretty hooked right now. So it's actually it's kind of a crazy story. My boyfriend and I, we do not remember when we met because it was so long ago. We could have been 4, we could have been 2. We're not really sure. Our parents were friends in college.
Wow.
And so we knew each other all growing up. And from about the time we were 14 to about the time we were 20, we were inseparable, like absolute best friends, terribly in love with each other, but did not want to ruin the friendship. So we didn't say anything. And so
then you got married.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I got married and he got married. And so, obviously you can't stay best friends with a person of the opposite gender. And so we just kind of fell off. I mean, over the years, we would talk like here or there, but it was always very cordial and, very just like, hey, yeah, I think when he had a kid, I messaged him and I was like, hey, congratulations. And he was like, thanks. And so just very surface level stuff. And then recently, he actually had a similar marriage breakdown with similar themes to it, unfortunately. And not from him. He's not.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, yeah.
I assume.
And so, yeah, we reconnected. And now.
So who reached out to who?
So he reached out to my brother. And he was just like, hey, so Torie is single. Do you think she would ever go for someone like me? And my little brother was just like, sure, dude, I don't care. Typical little brother stuff. And so he messaged me and it was.
Did you know he was divorced?
Yes, I did. It was, we were actually in it was a meme group where we would just send memes to each other, and there was like 5 of us in there, and my little brother was in there too. And so that was all it was, just like memes sent back and forth. And so I went through my marriage breakdown, and we called it the meme support group because we would send memes all the time, but we would always just also put in like, yeah, I'm about to quit my job, or, like this is going on. Everybody would be like, oh man, I'm sorry. And then they'd send like really sarcastic memes at you. And so it was like a fun little group. And so he had mentioned something in there about going through a separation as well. And so it was, again, like around the same time with around the same themes and everything. And so he messaged me back in September last year, and he was just kind of like, hey, so you remember how we used to be in high school? And I was like, yeah, clearly. I remember that very vividly. He's like, yeah, so I always like had a thing for you. And I was like, duh, I always had a thing for you. It was kind of this like light bulb moment for both of us.
Wow.
We both friend zoned ourselves so hard that it was like, this is never going to happen for you. And so it's really nice now because he's like, we picked up right where we left off, and he is my absolute best friend. And yeah, it's really great.
Wow, that's so cool. Does he have any kids?
He does. He has 3.
Oh my.
Yes.
Oh my.
3 little girls.
3 girls?
Yes. And I have 1 little boy.
Oh my God.
I know.
Oh, wow. Well, that is so exciting, and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
You're glowing talking about it.
Yes, he is definitely my sunshine.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Is your ex still, your ex is still in your child's life? You said that, right? Because he's going to therapy.
Yes, he is.
Awesome. How do you navigate through that?
So actually very well. We So he's on like the typical divorce dad schedule where it's every other weekend. And so what I do so that he can see my son, our son, more frequently is he works West Coast hours, so 11 to 8 at night. And so what I'll do is I will get Leo out of bed and not put on clothes or anything, just take a sleeping Leo out of bed, put him in the car, take him to his dad's house. His dad will get him ready, get him, food and everything. And then before he goes to work, he takes him to daycare, and then I pick him up from daycare and I have the night. So he usually sees his dad between 4 and 6 days a week, depending on whose weekend it is. And it's nice because it's a shortened day at daycare and he gets to see his dad all the time. And we actually work really well together, which is really great. And I have to put this moment in there because I wanted so hard to have some kind of relationship where I didn't hate him, because there was so much hurt there from being bedridden and, how I was treated during that time and everything. That was one thing that I was really trying to manifest when I was, picturing like, okay, this is the end of the road for this relationship, but what do I want this relationship to look like going forward? Because we do share a kid. It can't just be, I block you from everything, I never speak to you again. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so I was, trying to manifest him being just cool with me, like cool with everything. And so actually, a few weeks ago, my boyfriend stayed with me for a couple weeks. And so since we have that really close relationship with the kid, my ex was over quite a few times, where it was my boyfriend and then my ex and my kid and myself all in the same room.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous. Like, I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. I'm just like so scared. Like, someone's going to say something and it's going to be awkward or, terrible or something.
Yeah.
And I was getting my kid's shoes on to go with his dad, and my boyfriend said something. I remembered something that I had to send with him. And so I told my boyfriend, I was like, hey, get that for me. And so he picks it up, and my ex shakes his head at my boyfriend. He's like, she gets to boss you around now, like that. So my boyfriend like died laughing. And it was like this moment where it was like my ex and my boyfriend and my son and myself were just like all cool with each other. And
I love that.
It was like this really great moment. I almost started crying because I was like, I've never been so happy to be made fun of. Like, I was like, this is amazing.
Wow.
So, and they did have a lot of interactions over those 2 weeks where it was, it was like they would joke back and forth, and it was, it was just really nice. Like, it's exactly what I wanted it to be.
I love that. And I love that you're sharing that, because there's so many people that wish that same thing. Mm-hmm. And don't believe that it's possible. And a lot of times they either keep themselves single, mm-hmm. or they live in such a fog of it not being possible that they never allow their exes to meet. Mm-hmm. And that family dynamic is never really truly seen with the kids, being able to see that and see the love on both sides. So I love that you're sharing that, and love that it is possible that two men can put their swords down and, be in a good spot for the mother and for the child.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It is really nice. Yeah. I'm very grateful for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.